Hello friends, welcome to Luxury and Adventure Stories, where elegance meets drama, and every story takes you deep into the world of wealth, power, secrets, and unforgettable journeys. Please subscribe and turn on your notification bell for more stories. Sit back, relax, like and share as we dive into today's story. The city of Cape Town pulsed with life. Its skyline a dazzling blend of modernity and raw natural beauty, with a jagged silhouette of Table Mountain loomed like a silent guardian over the glittering lights below. In the heart of the city's business district, Carter Innovations headquarters stood as a monument to ambition, a sleek, glass-clad tower that reflected the ambition of its founder, James Carter. At 38, James was a billionaire CEO whose name was synonymous with innovation and integrity. His company, a tech conglomerate specializing in renewable energy solutions, had transformed South Africa's economy, earning him accolades and a devoted following. His life seemed perfect, a loving marriage to Sophia, his college sweetheart, and their spirited 10-year-old daughter, Lily, who brought joy to their elegant Constantia villa. Yet, perfection breeds envy, and Rachel Onkobo, James's personal secretary, was its silent prisoner. At 29, Rachel was a striking woman with sharp cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes that gleamed with quiet intensity, and a mind as cunning as it was restless. Hired 3 years ago after a rigorous election process, she had quickly become indispensable, her efficiency and poise masking a dangerous undercurrent. Rachel's desk, positioned just outside James's corner office on the 42nd floor, was her command center, a vantage point from which she observed every detail of his life. She memorized his schedule, anticipated his needs, and noted the way his eyes softened when he spoke of Sophia or Lily. Each smile he offered her, each moment of gratitude for her work, fed a dangerous fire within her. Rachel's infatuation had begun innocently enough, a fleeting admiration for her charismatic boss. But over time, it morphed into something darker, a consuming obsession that twisted her thoughts like vines around a tree. She spent her evenings alone in her modest Sea Point apartment, scrolling through photos of James and Sophia at charity galas, their arms linked, their smiles radiant. Sophia, with her effortless elegance and warm laugh, seemed to Rachel an obstacle, a woman who had everything Rachel craved but could never attain. Sophia's life was a curated masterpiece. A sprawling home, a doting husband, a precocious daughter, and a social calendar filled with Cape Town's elite. Rachel, raised in a struggling township outside Pretoria, had clawed her way to this job through sheer grit. But the proximity to James's world only deepened her sense of inadequacy. Her envy wasn't just about Sophia's wealth or status. It was personal. Rachel saw in James a man who could rewrite her story, a savior who could lift her from her past into a life of glamour and security. She imagined herself in Sophia's place, standing beside James at galas, her hand in his, her name on his lips. The fantasy was intoxicating, and it fueled a reckless ambition. She didn't just want James's attention. She wanted his life, his love, his everything. And she was willing to destroy his marriage to get it. Late one evening, as the office grew quiet and the city lights sparkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Rachel lingered at her desk. James had left hours earlier for a dinner with investors, his navy Armani suit draped over a chair in his office, awaiting his next meeting. Rachel's fingers traced the edge of her keyboard, her mind racing. She had overheard Sophia mention checking James's pockets for receipts, a habit born of love, not suspicion, but one Rachel could exploit. An idea, sharp and dangerous, took root. She glanced around the empty office, her heart pounding like a drumbeat in the silence. This was her moment. The air in Carter Innovations headquarters was thick with the scent of polished wood and ambition. The 42nd floor, reserved for the executive suite, was a world of its own, plush carpets, modern art, and a panoramic view of Cape Town that could steal your breath. Rachel's desk, a sleek slab of glass and steel, sat like a sentinel outside James's office. Its minimalist design belied the chaos of her thoughts. It was past 9 p.m., and the office was a ghost town, save for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant whine of a vacuum cleaner from a lower floor. Rachel had stayed late under the pretense of finalizing James's schedule for a renewable energy summit in Johannesburg. But her true purpose was far more sinister. She stood, smoothing her tailored pencil skirt, and glanced at the security camera in the corner. Its red light blinked steadily. But Rachel had learned its blind spots during her 3 years here. She moved with the grace of a predator, her heels silent on the carpet as she slipped into James's office. The space was a testament to his success. A mahogany desk littered with prototypes of solar panels, a shelf lined with awards, and a framed photo of Sophia and Lily laughing on a beach in Camps Bay. Rachel's stomach twisted at the sight, a cocktail of longing and resentment. She pushed the feeling aside and focused on the navy suit jacket hanging on a rack near the door. Her plan was simple yet diabolical. Sophia's habit of checking James's pockets was a vulnerability Rachel could exploit. A single, carefully placed item could unravel their marriage, planting a seed of doubt that would grow into a forest of suspicion. Rachel reached into her purse, her fingers closed around a small foil packet. A condom, purchased earlier that day from a discreet pharmacy in Greenpoint. She had chosen it deliberately, ensuring it was a brand James would never use, a detail that would scream infidelity to a suspicious wife. Her breath hitched as she held the packet, its metallic sheen catching the dim light. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if she was caught? What if James traced it back to her? But the image of Sophia's tear-streaked face, of James turning to Rachel for comfort, drowned out her hesitation. She slipped the condom into the inner pocket of the suit jacket, her fingers trembling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The act felt like a violation, a trespass into sacred territory, but it also felt like power. She smoothed the fabric, ensuring no bulge betrayed her secret, and stepped back to admire her work. As she returned to her desk, Rachel's mind raced with possibilities. Sophia would find the condom, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps the next day, and the questions would begin. Why was it there? Who had James been with? The doubt would fester, and Sophia, with her pride and fiery temper, would likely confront him. Rachel knew James's integrity would make his denials convincing, but the evidence would be damning. A single condom could topple a marriage built on trust, especially when Sophia's insecurities, fueled by years of being in James's high-profile shadow, were already a quiet undercurrent. Rachel leaned back in her chair, her eyes drifting to the cityscape beyond the window. Table Mountain loomed in the distance, its flat summit shrouded in a veil of clouds, as if conspiring with her. She imagined the fallout. Sophia filing for divorce, James heartbroken but vulnerable, and Rachel stepping in as his confidant, his savior. She would be patient, subtle, letting his gratitude for her loyalty blossom into something more. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, not of guilt, but of anticipation. But there was a variable Rachel hadn't accounted for, a twist she couldn't foresee. Unknown to her, James's office wasn't as empty as she thought. A junior analyst, Emma, had stayed late in a nearby cubicle, working on a report for the summit. Hidden by the shadows of her desk, Emma had seen Rachel enter the office and linger near the suit jacket. Curiosity piqued. She made a mental note to mention it to a colleague, unaware of the ripple effect her observation would trigger. Rachel, oblivious to this witness, powered down her computer and gathered her things. As she stepped into the elevator, the city lights twinkling below, she felt a surge of confidence. The seed was planted, and soon, she believed, James Carter would be hers. The elevator doors closed, sealing her fate in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The morning sun bathed Cape Town in a golden glow, its rays glinting off the glass facade of Carter Innovations headquarters. Inside, the 42nd floor buzzed with the quiet intensity of a high-stakes day. James Carter, impeccable in his Navy Armani suit, prepared for a pivotal meeting with investors from Dubai, whose funding could propel his latest solar energy project to global markets. His focus was razor-sharp, his mind a whirlwind of figures and projections, oblivious to the trap Rachel had set the night before. The condom, a small but lethal seed, lay hidden in his jacket pocket, waiting to upend his world. James stood at the head of the boardroom, his charisma filling the space as he presented slides on sustainable energy grids. His team, a mix of engineers and analysts, hung on his every word, while the investors nodded approvingly. Rachel, stationed at her desk outside, watched through the glass walls, her eyes lingering on James's broad shoulders, the way his hands moved with quiet confidence. She felt a thrill, knowing her plan was in motion, her heart racing with the anticipation of chaos. Meanwhile, Sophia Carter navigated the city's bustling streets, a tray of coffee cups balanced in her hands. She had decided to surprise James at the office, a gesture born of love and a desire to reconnect amidst his demanding schedule. At 36, Sophia was a vision of elegance, her auburn hair swept into a loose bun, her emerald scarf catching the breeze as she stepped out of her sleek Mercedes. She carried herself with the poise of a woman who had once argued cases in courtrooms but now channeled her passion into charity work, her latest project funding clean water initiatives in rural Eastern Cape. Yet, beneath her polished exterior, Sophia harbored quiet insecurities, a lingering fear that James's high-profile world might pull him away from her. She rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, her heart light with the thought of seeing James's smile. The office was a hive of activity, but Rachel's desk was empty. She was in the copy room, a deliberate absence to avoid suspicion. Sophia set the coffee tray on Rachel's desk and noticed James's suit jacket draped over a chair in his office, left behind during a break in the meeting. Smiling to herself, she stepped inside, intending to hang it properly, a small, intimate act that felt like a tether to her husband. As she lifted the jacket, her fingers brushed the inner pocket, and she felt a crinkle. Curious, she reached inside, expecting a receipt or a note. Instead, her fingers closed around a foil packet. She pulled it out, and the world seemed to tilt. A condom, bright, metallic, and unmistakably out of place, stared back at her. Sophia's breath caught, her pulse hammering in her ears. She and James hadn't used condoms in years, not since Lily's birth. Her mind raced, searching for an explanation, but none came. The packet felt like a betrayal, cold and sharp in her hand. She stood frozen, the jacket slipping from her grasp. When James emerged from the boardroom, his tie loosened, a tired but triumphant smile on his face. "Sophia," he said, his voice warm with surprise. "What are you doing here?" But his smile faltered as he saw her expression. Pale, her eyes wide with something he couldn't place. She held up the condom, her hand trembling, and the air between them thickened with unspoken questions. "James," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "What is this?" He blinked, confusion clouding his features. "What are you?" He stepped closer, saw the packet, and his brow furrowed. "A condom? Where did you get that?" "In your pocket," she said, her voice rising, sharp with accusation. "Your jacket, James. Explain this to me. Now." The boardroom doors were still open, and a few team members glanced their way, sensing the tension. James, flustered, ushered Sophia into his office and closed the door. "Sophia, I have no idea how that got there," he said, his voice earnest but strained. "I swear I've never seen it before. You know me. You know I'd never." "Do I?" She cut him off, her eyes flashing with hurt. "You're gone all the time, James. Meetings, trips, galas. I trust you, but this—" She shook the packet, her voice breaking. "This doesn't just appear out of nowhere." James ran a hand through his hair, his mind scrambling. He was a man of logic, of solutions, but this defied reason. "Sophia, listen to me. I'm not cheating on you. I love you. I love Lily. It's a mistake. It has to be." But his words fell hollow against the tangible evidence in her hand. Sophia's eyes brimmed with tears, and she turned away, clutching the coffee tray as if it could anchor her. "I need to think," she said, her voice barely audible, and left the office, the condom still in her hand. James stood rooted, his world tilting, unaware that Rachel, now back at her desk, had overheard the confrontation through the thin walls. A faint smile curved her lips, quickly hidden as she typed, her heart singing with the chaos she'd unleashed. The Constantia Villa, once a haven of laughter and warmth, had become a battleground in the days following Sophia's discovery. Nestled among vineyards and ancient oaks, the house was a sprawling masterpiece of glass and stone, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the mountains. But now, the air inside was heavy with tension, the silence broken only by sharp words and stifled sobs. Sophia slept in the guest room, her trust in James fractured, while Lily, sensing the rift, retreated to her room with her books and drawings, her usual spark dimmed. James was a man unraveling. He spent his days at Carter Innovations, burying himself in work, but the weight of Sophia's suspicion followed him like a shadow. He replayed the moment in his office endlessly, searching for an explanation. Had someone planted the condom? A prank? A mistake? But the more he protested his innocence, the more Sophia seemed to retreat, her eyes guarded, her responses clipped. She hadn't mentioned divorce yet, but the word hung unspoken between them, a specter waiting to be named. Sophia, meanwhile, wrestled with her emotions. She loved James fiercely, had built a life with him through years of sacrifice and shared dreams. But the condom was a splinter in her heart, feeding doubts she'd long suppressed. Was James, with his endless meetings and late nights, slipping away? Had his world of power and prestige pulled him into someone else's arms? She spent hours staring at the packet, now tucked in her nightstand, its presence a constant accusation. She wanted to believe James, but the evidence was too stark, too deliberate. At the office, Rachel played her role to perfection. She was a model secretary, efficient, discreet, and ever-present. She brought James his coffee, adjusted his schedule to ease his stress, and offered sympathetic smiles when he looked weary. "Rough day, Mr. Carter," she'd say, her voice soft, her eyes wide with feigned concern. James, distracted and desperate for normalcy, began to confide in her, small admissions at first. "Sophia and I are going through something." Rachel nodded, her expression a mass of empathy, while inside, she exulted. The crack in their marriage was widening, and she was ready to step into it. Late one evening, as the office lights dimmed and Cape Town sparkled beyond the windows, Rachel lingered after hours, knowing James was still in his office, poring over reports. She knocked softly and entered, carrying a file she claimed needed his signature. "You're working late again," she said, her tone gentle. "Everything okay at home?" James sighed, rubbing his temples. "Not really," he admitted, his voice heavy. "Sophia thinks I'm not who I say I am. It's killing me, Rachel." Her heart leapt, but she kept her face neutral. "That sounds tough," she said, leaning against the desk, her skirt brushing his arm. "You don't deserve that. You're the most honest man I know." Her words were a bomb, and James offered a grateful nod, unaware of the venom behind them. Rachel's glee was a secret fire, burning brighter with each strained conversation she overheard. She'd passed by James's office during his calls with Sophia, catching fragments of their arguments. "I don't know how it got there." "Then explain it, James." And her smile would deepen. She began leaving subtle cues to fuel Sophia's doubts. An anonymous note slipped into Sophia's car, reading, "He's not as loyal as you think," written in a script she practiced to disguise her hand. Each act was a thread in her web, pulling James closer to her orbit. But the office wasn't as blind as Rachel believed. Emma, the junior analyst who had seen her linger near James's jacket, began to notice other oddities. Rachel's late-night presence, her overly attentive demeanor with James, the way her eyes followed him. Emma confided in a colleague, Mark, a data analyst with a knack for patterns. "Something's off with Rachel," she whispered over coffee in the break room. "She's too invested in Mr. Carter." Mark, intrigued, agreed to keep an eye out, unaware that their curiosity was a spark that could ignite Rachel's carefully laid plans. As the days turned to weeks, the Carter household grew colder. Sophia's smiles were rare, her conversations with James terse. Lily, caught in the crossfire, asked, "Why are you and Daddy fighting?" And Sophia's heart broke at her daughter's confusion. James, desperate to mend the rift, suggested counseling, but Sophia hesitated, the condom's shadow too heavy. Rachel, watching from the sidelines, felt the thrill of victory within reach. She imagined James, broken but hers, turning to her in his loneliness. But the truth, like a storm on the horizon, was gathering strength, and Rachel's web was not as secure as she believed. The vibrant pulse of Cape Town had dulled for the Carter family, their once joyful life now shrouded in a haze of mistrust. 5 months had passed since Sophia found the condom in James's suit pocket, and the seed of doubt Rachel planted had taken root, its tendrils curling deeper into Sophia's heart. The Constantia Villa, with its sprawling gardens and sunlit terraces, felt like a hollow shell, its warmth replaced by silences that stretched like chasms between Sophia and James. Their daughter, Lily, tiptoed through the tension, her usual chatter subdued, her drawings now filled with stormy skies instead of sunny beaches. Sophia's faith in James, once unshakable, had crumbled under the weight of the unanswered question, where had the condom come from? She replayed the moment of discovery endlessly, her fingers brushing the foil packet, the cold shock of betrayal. James's denials were fervent, his eyes pleading, but the evidence gnawed at her. She had always prided herself on her intuition, honed in courtrooms and charity boardrooms alike. But now it betrayed her, whispering that James's late nights and frequent trips might hide more than work. The society pages, once a source of pride, now fueled her fears, with photos of James at galas alongside glamorous women, none of whom she recognized, yet all of whom seemed too close. Desperate for clarity, Sophia made a decision she never thought she would. She hired Thomas Reed, a private investigator recommended by a trusted friend. Thomas, a wiry man in his late 40s with weathered face and sharp gray eyes, was known for his discretion and tenacity. Over coffee at a discreet cafe in V&A waterfront, Sophia handed him a photo of James, her voice trembling as she outlined her suspicions. "I need to know the truth," she said, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. "If he's cheating, I need proof. If he's not," she trailed off, unable to voice the hope that felt increasingly out of reach. Thomas nodded, his expression neutral, but his mind already at work. He began tailing James, blending into the city's rhythm, following him from Carter Innovations' gleaming headquarters to client dinners at upscale restaurants in Camps Bay, from early morning jogs along the Sea Point Promenade to late-night strategy sessions in the office. James's life was a whirlwind of meetings, calls, and public appearances, but Thomas found no trace of infidelity. No secret rendezvous, no lingering glances with other women, no unexplained absences. Yet, Sophia's pain was real, and Thomas sensed the answer lay not in James's actions, but in the mystery of the condom itself. Meanwhile, Rachel on Kobo was tightening her grip on her plan. At Carter Innovations, she had become a shadow to James, her presence as constant as the Table Mountain skyline. She traded her usual tailored blouses for fitted dresses that hugged her curves, her makeup bolder, her smiles calculated. She lingered in James's office after delivering reports, leaning closer than necessary to point out details. Her perfume a subtle but deliberate choice, jasmine, exotic and unforgettable. "You're working too hard, Mr. Carter," she'd say, her voice a soft caress, or, "Let me handle that for you. You've got enough on your plate." James, drowning in the stress of his fracturing marriage, saw her only as a loyal employee, a lifeline in his storm. He was blind to the hunger in her eyes, the way her gaze lingered on his hands, his lips, imagining them as hers. Rachel's evenings were spent crafting her next moves. She knew Sophia's doubts were growing, but she needed to fan the flames. She began leaving anonymous notes, typed on plain paper, and slipped into Sophia's mailbox or tucked under her car's windshield wiper at charity events. "He's not who you think," one read. "Ask him about the late nights," said another. Each note was a dart, precise and poisonous, designed to deepen Sophia's paranoia. Rachel reveled in the chaos, Her Sea Point apartment, now a war room of sorts, littered with scribbled plans and photos of James clipped from magazines. She imagined the day Sophia would walk away, leaving James vulnerable, ready to see Rachel as more than his secretary. James, meanwhile, was a man adrift. His days at Carter Innovations were a blur of meetings and deadlines, but his nights were haunted by Sophia's coldness. He tried to bridge the gap, planning dinners, suggesting weekends away, but Sophia's responses were guarded, her eyes searching for lies. "I'm not the man you think I am," he told her one night, his voice raw. "I've never betrayed you." But Sophia only looked away, the condom shadow too heavy to lift. Lily, caught in the crossfire, began asking questions. "Why don't you and Mommy talk anymore?" And James's heart ached with each one. Rachel seized every opportunity to deepen the rift. During a late-night work session, as James pored over contracts, she brought him a glass of water, her fingers brushing his as she set it down. "You look exhausted," she said, her tone laced with concern. "Is everything okay at home?" James hesitated, then admitted, "It's been rough. Sophia, she doesn't trust me anymore." Rachel nodded, her face a mass of sympathy, but inside, she was alight with triumph. She was inching closer to her goal, her fantasy of replacing Sophia growing more vivid with each passing day. Thomas Reed's investigation was meticulous, but after weeks of tailing James, he had nothing to show for it. James's life was an open book, work, gym, home, repeat. No secret lovers, no hidden hotel visits, no whisper phone calls. Yet, Thomas's instincts, honed by years of unraveling lies, told him the answer lay closer to the source of the problem. Carter Innovations itself. The condom hadn't appeared by magic, and Sophia's anonymous notes suggested someone was orchestrating her pain. Thomas shifted his focus, his gray eyes narrowing on the one constant in James's orbit, Rachel on Kobo. He began observing Rachel discreetly, noting her behavior around James. She was always there, anticipating his needs, lingering after meetings, her smiles too warm, her touches too frequent. Thomas watched her from a corner of the office lobby one afternoon, disguised as a courier, as she adjusted James's tie before a press conference, her fingers lingering a moment too long. He saw the way her eyes followed James, hungry and possessive, and it set off alarms in his mind. Rachel wasn't just a secretary. She was a player in a game he was starting to understand. Thomas dug deeper, requesting access to office security footage under the guise of a routine insurance check. He spent hours in a dimly lit room, scrolling through grainy images from a night before Sophia's discovery. Most of the footage was unremarkable, janitors, late-night analysts, but one clip caught his eye. At 9:17 p.m., Rachel entered James's office, her movements quick and deliberate. She lingered near the suit rack, her back to the camera, her hands moving in a way that suggested she was placing something. Thomas froze the frame, his pulse quickening. The angle wasn't clear enough to confirm, but it was enough to make Rachel his primary suspect. He began tailing her, blending into crowds of Cape Town's bustling streets. He followed her to her Sea Point apartment, noting her late-night outings to obscure postboxes where she dropped envelopes, likely the anonymous notes. He trailed her to a pharmacy in Greenpoint, where a cashier's casual remark revealed Rachel had purchased condoms months ago, a detail that aligned chillingly with Sophia's discovery. Thomas's suspicion solidified. Rachel was no bystander. She was the architect of this chaos. Meanwhile, Rachel, unaware of the scrutiny, doubled down on her efforts. She sent another note to Sophia, this one bolder. "He's lying to you. Check his phone." She slipped it under Sophia's car door during a charity gala at the Cape Town International Convention Center, her heart racing with the thrill of her game. At the office, she leaned into her role as James's confidant, offering to stay late to help with presentations, her voice soft and reassuring. "You don't have to go through this alone," she told him one evening, her hand resting lightly on his arm. James, exhausted and heartsick, offered a weary smile, still blind to her intentions. But Thomas's investigation was closing in. He interviewed Emma, the junior analyst who had seen Rachel near James's jacket that fateful night. Emma, hesitant but trusting Thomas's credentials, shared her unease. She was in his office alone, fiddling with a suit. It felt wrong. Thomas nodded, his mind piecing together the puzzle. He cross-referenced a pharmacy receipt with a condom brand Sophia had found, confirming a match. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling, and Thomas knew he needed to act fast before Rachel's scheme pushed Sophia to a breaking point. As the weeks passed, Sophia's suspicions deepened with each anonymous note, her sleep haunted by images of James with another woman. She checked his phone, his emails, finding nothing but feeling no relief. Thomas, however, was preparing to confront her with his findings, sensing that the truth could either save her marriage or shatter it completely. Rachel, oblivious to the net tightening around her, continued her dance of deception, her eyes fixed on a future where James was hers. But the whisper of doubt she had sown was about to turn against her, as the truth, like Cape Town's relentless winds, began to howl. The Constantia Villa, once a sanctuary of laughter and love, had become a mausoleum of fractured dreams. 7 months after Sophia's discovery of the condom in James Carter's suit pocket, the air inside the sprawling home was thick with unspoken pain. The scent of jasmine from the garden drifted through open windows, but did nothing to soften the chill between Sophia and James. Their daughter, Lily, now a shadow of her vibrant self, retreated into her room, her once colorful drawings replaced by sketches of broken hearts and stormy seas. At 10 years old, she sensed the unraveling of her world. Her questions, "Why don't you and Daddy talk anymore?" met with forced smiles and vague assurances. Sophia's heart was a battlefield. The anonymous texts, arriving like clockwork on her phone, were relentless in their cruelty. "He's hiding something." One read, "Sent from a block number. Check his late-night meetings." Urged another. Each message was a dagger, twisting deeper into her doubts. Sophia had always prided herself on her strength, her ability to read people from her days as a lawyer, but the condom in these texts had shaken her to her core. She loved James, his quiet strength, his devotion to their family. But the evidence was a wall she couldn't climb. Late at night, alone in the guest room, she stared at the ceiling, replaying their years together, searching for signs she'd missed. Had James's ambition, his endless hours at Carter Innovations, opened the door to betrayal? The decision to file for divorce came on a rainy afternoon, the Cape Town sky heavy with clouds that mirrored her mood. Sophia sat in her study, the divorce papers spread before her, her pen trembling in her hand. She hadn't wanted this, hadn't imagined a life without James, but the text and the condom were a chorus of doubt she couldn't silence. She signed the papers, her tears smudging the ink, and sent them to her lawyer, a friend from her legal days. When James received the news, delivered coldly via email, his world shattered. He stood in his office at Carter Innovations, staring at the city skyline, his chest tight with grief. "Sophia," he whispered, as if saying her name could undo the fracture. But she was gone, retreating behind a wall of silence, and Lily's sadness only deepened his despair. Rachel Onkobo, the architect of this chaos, watched from the sidelines with a predator's patience. At Carter Innovations, she was a master of subtlety, her every move calculated to widen the chasm between James and Sophia. She wore dresses that clung to her frame, her makeup accentuating her sharp cheekbones, her smiles a careful blend of warmth and restraint. She lingered in James's office, offering coffee, adjusting his schedule, her voice a soothing balm. "You're carrying too much," she'd say, her tone laced with concern. "Let me take some of the load." James, drowning in heartbreak, saw her as a loyal ally, a beacon of stability in his crumbling world. He didn't notice the hunger in her eyes, the way her fingers lingered when she handed him a pen, or the calculated softness of her voice. Rachel seized every opportunity to deepen her influence. Late one evening, as James worked alone in his office, the city lights casting shadows across his desk, she knocked softly and entered. "You're still here," she said, feigning surprise, a file tucked under her arm. "You need to rest, Mr. Carter. You can't keep going like this." James sighed, rubbing his eyes, the weight of Sophia's divorce filing pressing on him like a physical force. "It's hard," he admitted, his voice raw. "Sophia, she's done with me. I don't know how to fix this." Rachel perched on the edge of his desk, her posture casual but deliberate, her dress riding up just enough to draw attention. "You don't deserve this," she said, her voice low, intimate. "You're a good man, James. Anyone can see that." Her words were a lifeline, and James offered a tired smile, grateful for her support. Rachel's heart raced. She was so close, her fantasy of stepping into Sophia's place within reach. She imagined James turning to her, his gratitude blossoming into love, their future a glittering tapestry of power and passion. But James's heart remained with his family, his thoughts drifting to Sophia's laugh, Lily's hugs, the life he was losing. Outside the office, Sophia's pain was a living thing. The anonymous texts, which Rachel sent from burner phones purchased in obscure corners of Cape Town, kept her on edge. "He's with someone tonight," one claimed, sent while James was at a legitimate client dinner. Sophia checked his location, his emails, finding nothing but feeling no relief. The divorce filing was her attempt to reclaim control, but it left her hollow. Lily's withdrawal, her silence at dinner, her refusal to join their usual weekend hikes, only deepened Sophia's guilt. She began to question her decision, wondering if she'd acted too hastily. But the texts were a relentless whisper, urging her to believe the worst. Rachel, oblivious to the storm gathering against her, continued her campaign. She sent another text, this one bolder. "He's lying to you? Ask about his secretary." She slipped it into Sophia's mailbox during a late-night drive past the Constantia villa, her pulse thrumming with the thrill of her game. She was so close to breaking them apart, to claiming James for herself. But the city, with its watchful eyes and restless energy, was beginning to turn against her. Thomas Reed, the private investigator Sophia had hired, was closing in on the truth. His weeks of tailing James had yielded nothing. No affairs, no secret lovers. But his focus on Rachel had uncovered a pattern of deceit. He had the security footage of her lingering near James's suit jacket, the pharmacy cashier's confirmation of her condom purchase, and Emma's testimony about her suspicious behavior. But the breakthrough came unexpectedly from a different source. Mark, the data analyst who had been alerted by Emma's concerns. Mark, a meticulous man with a knack for uncovering patterns in chaos, had taken Emma's suspicions seriously. He began digging into Rachel's activities, using his access to office systems to track her movements. Late one evening, while reviewing expense reports, he stumbled across a receipt submitted by Rachel for petty cash, a purchase from a Greenpoint pharmacy, dated the day before Sophia's discovery. The item listed was vague, but Mark cross-referenced it with Thomas's findings, and the cashier's description confirmed it. Condoms, the same brand as the one Sophia found. The receipt was a damning clue, a thread that could unravel Rachel's web. Mark contacted Thomas, and the two met at a quiet bar in Long Street, the neon lights casting a kaleidoscope of colors across their table. "This isn't just a coincidence," Mark said, sliding the receipt across the table. "Rachel's involved. She's too close to James, too invested." Thomas nodded, his gray eyes narrowing. The pieces were falling into place. Rachel's late-night office visits, the anonymous notes, the condom. She wasn't just a bystander. She was the orchestrator of Sophia's pain. Thomas shared his findings with Sophia the next day, meeting her at a secluded bench in Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens, where the air was thick with the scent of feinbos. Sophia listened, her face pale, as Thomas laid out the evidence. The footage, the receipt, Emma's testimony. "Rachel planted the condom," he said, his voice steady. "She's been sending the texts, too. She's trying to break you and James apart." Sophia's hands clenched, her emotions a tangle of relief and rage. Relief that James might be innocent. Rage that Rachel had manipulated her pain. She thought of the divorce papers, the night spent doubting James, and her heart ached with the weight of her mistake. "I need to know for sure," Sophia said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I need to confront her, but I want it done right." Thomas nodded, sensing her need for closure. Together, they devised a plan to expose Rachel, a trap that would force her to reveal her hand. Sophia suggested a staged reconciliation dinner at Carter Innovations, a private event where she would pretend to mend things with James, inviting Rachel under guise of gratitude for her support. "She'll think she's won," Sophia said, her eyes hard, "but we'll have the truth." Thomas coordinated with Mark to gather more evidence, pulling additional footage and tracking Rachel's burner phone purchases. They enlisted Emma, who agreed to keep watch during the dinner, her unease about Rachel now a burning certainty. Sophia, meanwhile, reached out to James, her voice soft but guarded. "I want to talk," she said over the phone, her words a flicker of hope in his darkness. "Can we have dinner at the office? Just us and Rachel, to thank her for helping you through this." James, desperate for any chance to save his marriage, agreed, unaware of the trap being set. Rachel received the invitation with a surge of triumph. She saw it as her moment. Sophia retreating, James vulnerable, and herself poised to step into the spotlight. She spent the day preparing, choosing a dress that was elegant but suggestive, her mind spinning with visions of James's gratitude turning to affection. But the city, with its restless energy and watchful eyes, was conspiring against her. Thomas, Mark, and Sophia were ready, their plan a net tightening around Rachel's carefully woven lies. The dinner would be no celebration. It would be a reckoning, and Rachel, blind to the truth closing in, was walking into it with a smile. The 42nd floor of Carter Innovations headquarters was transformed for the evening, its sleek boardroom now a stage for a carefully orchestrated reckoning. The long mahogany table, usually reserved for high-stakes deals, was draped in a white linen cloth, set with crystal wine glasses and silver cutlery that glinted under the soft glow of chandeliers. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Cape Town skyline sparkled, Table Mountain a dark sentinel against the starlit sky. The air was heavy with the scent of roasted lamb and rosemary, a catered meal meant to signal a truce. But the true purpose of the dinner pulsed beneath the surface like a hidden current. Sophia had planned every detail with Thomas Reed, the private investigator, and Mark, the data analyst who had uncovered Rachel's damning receipt. The invitation to Rachel had been framed as a gesture of gratitude, a supposed reconciliation dinner to mend her marriage with James. Sophia's voice had been warm but firm when she called Rachel, thanking her for supporting James through this difficult time. Rachel, basking in the belief that her scheme was nearing its climax, accepted with a smile, her heart racing with visions of James's vulnerability, drawing him closer to her. She arrived in a deep burgundy dress, its neckline daring, her braid swept into an elegant updo, her confidence a mask of the storm she didn't see coming. James sat ahead of the table, his navy suit crisp but his eyes weary, the weight of Sophia's divorce filing still heavy on his shoulders. Sophia sat beside him, her emerald dress a nod to their happier days, her expression a careful blend of warmth and resolve. Lily was absent, spared the tension by a sleepover with a friend, but her presence lingered in James's thoughts, a reminder of what he stood to lose. Rachel took her seat across from Sophia, her smile radiant, unaware of the trap closing around her. Thomas and Mark were present, introduced as close associates, helping with company project, their true roles concealed. Emma, the junior analyst who had first suspected Rachel, lingered near the door, her role to observe and signal if Rachel tried to flee. The dinner began with strained pleasantries, the clink of glasses and forced laughter echoing in the room. Sophia played her part masterfully, raising a toast to new beginnings and thanking Rachel for her loyalty to James. "You've been a rock for him," she said, her voice steady but her eyes sharp, watching Rachel's reaction. Rachel nodded, her smile tight, sensing a subtle shift in the air but dismissing it as nerves. James, still believing this was a genuine attempt at reconciliation, offered a grateful glance to Sophia, his heart aching with hope. As dessert was served, pavlova topped with fresh berries, Thomas cleared his throat, signaling the moment they planned. "Before we wrap up," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "there's something we need to address." He stood, pulling a tablet from his briefcase, and the room fell silent, the only sound the distant hum of the city below. Rachel's smile faltered, her fingers tightening around her wine glass as Thomas tapped the screen, projecting security footage onto the boardroom's wall. The grainy image showed Rachel, unmistakable in her tailored skirt, slipping into James's office late at night 8 months ago. The timestamp was clear, 9:17 p.m., the evening before Sophia's discovery. The footage captured her lingering near the suit rack, her hands moving quickly, slipping something into the jacket's pocket. The room seemed to contract, the air thick with tension. James's brow furrowed, confusion giving way to realization. Sophia's face was a mask of controlled fury, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Rachel," Thomas said, his tone measured, "can you explain what you're doing in Mr. Carter's office that night?" Rachel's eyes darted to the screen, then to James, then to Sophia. Her pulse hammered, her carefully constructed facade cracking. I was just organizing his things," she stammered, her voice thin. "I do that all the time." Thomas didn't flinch. He slid a document across the table, a pharmacy receipt dated the same day, for condoms matching the one Sophia found. "This is yours, isn't it?" he asked, his gray eyes locking onto hers. "The cashier identified you. Same brand, same day. Quite a coincidence." Rachel's breath hitched, her mind racing for an escape. She glanced at James, hoping for a lifeline, but his face was a storm of shock and betrayal. Sophia leaned forward, her voice low but cutting. "You sent the text, didn't you? The anonymous notes, telling me to doubt him. It was all you." The accusation hung in the air, a guillotine poised to fall. Rachel's composure shattered, her hands trembling as she pushed back from the table. "You don't understand," she said, her voice rising, desperate. "I did it for him, for us. James, you're miserable with her. She doesn't deserve you." The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, her unrequited love laid bare. "I love you, James. I've always loved you. I thought if she left, you'd see me, really see me." The room fell silent, the weight of her confession of physical force. James stared at her, his jaw tight, his mind reeling. "Rachel," he said, his voice low, "you did this? You tore my family apart." His words were a blade, cutting through her fantasy. Sophia's eyes brimmed with tears, not of sadness but of rage. Her suspicions confirmed, but her heart heavy with the betrayal. Mark spoke up, his voice steady. "We have more evidence. Your burner phone purchases, the notes traced to postboxes you visited. It's over, Rachel." Emma, standing by the door, nodded silently, her earlier suspicions validated. Rachel's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, but found only judgment. Cornered, she broke, her shoulders slumping as tears streamed down her face. "I just wanted a chance," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I thought I could make you happy." The silence that followed was deafening, her betrayal a wound laid bare. Thomas signaled to two security guards waiting outside, who entered to escort Rachel out. She didn't resist, her dream of replacing Sophia shattered, her ambition reduced to ashes. As she was led away, James and Sophia sat in stunned silence, the truth a bittersweet balm to their pain. The aftermath of Rachel's confession was a whirlwind. The Cape Town police, alerted by Thomas, arrested Rachel the following morning on charges of malicious intent and harassment. Her Sea Point apartment, once a shrine to her obsession, was searched, revealing burner phones, drafts of anonymous notes, and a journal detailing her fixation on James. The evidence was overwhelming, and Rachel, stripped of her charm and cunning, faced a future in a cell, her dreams of marrying James a distant memory. The city, which had been her stage, now turned its back on her, its restless energy moving on without her. James and Sophia were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered trust. The dinner had exposed Rachel's scheme, but also laid bare fragility of their marriage. In the days that followed, they sat in their Constantia villa, the silence between them softer now, tinged with hope but heavy with regret. James, his heart raw from Rachel's betrayal, reached for Sophia's hand. "I'm so sorry you went through this," he said, his voice thick. "I should have fought harder to prove the truth." Sophia squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his. "I should have trusted you," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I let her lies tear us apart." They agreed to seek counseling, a commitment to rebuild what Rachel had nearly destroyed. Their therapist, a kind woman with practice in Ronbosch, guided them through the pain, helping them confront their insecurities. Sophia's fear of losing James to his world. James's guilt for letting work overshadow his family. Slowly, they began to mend, their love a fragile but resilient thread. Lily was their anchor. The 10-year-old, who had withdrawn into sadness, began to bloom again as her parents' warmth returned. They prioritized family time, taking her on hikes up Lion's Head, where the Cape Town skyline spread below like a promise of renewal. They laughed over ice cream at Camps Bay, Lily's giggles a melody that healed their wounds. Sophia resumed her charity work with renewed passion, while James delegated more at Carter Innovations, carving out evenings for his family. The company flourished under his refocused leadership, its solar projects gaining international acclaim, a testament to his resilience. The Carter family emerged stronger, their unity forged in the fires of deceit. Rachel's scheme, meant to fracture them, had instead revealed the depth of their love. They hosted a quiet dinner at their villa, just the three of them, the table set with Lily's favorite dishes, bow-bowtie and malva pudding. As they sat under the stars, the Constantia Valley stretching around them, James raised a glass. "To us," he said, his voice steady. "To the truth." Sophia smiled, her hand resting on Lily's, and for the first time in months, the villa felt like home again. Cape Town, with its restless winds and watchful mountains, bore witness to their renewal. The city's heartbeat, vibrant and unforgiving, carried their story forward. A tale of betrayal undone by love, of a family reborn from the ashes of deceit. The Carters, scarred but whole, faced the future together, their bond a beacon against the shadows. Under Cape Town's golden sun, the Carters celebrated their reunion with a picnic at Kirstenbosch Gardens. Rachel's scheme, meant to destroy them, had instead reminded them of their resilience. In South Africa's heart, their love triumphed, proving that truth could mend even the deepest wounds. Thank you for watching today's episode of Luxury and Adventure Stories, where every tale is draped in elegance but stitched with real emotion. Bellhop Bell, if this story moved you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps the journey going, one story at a time. Speech Balloon, drop a comment below. What would you have done in their place? Movie Camera new episodes drop every week. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.